It's 1,000 leagues. Can you hear us? It's 1,000 leagues again.
Do what needs to be done.
Long Johnson, Anthony became beyond the wall.
Welcome home, Janeris John Bourne.
Dracarys.
When I sit the Iron Throne, you'll be my hand.
I'll try to serve you well.
I expect you'll be the first crabber's son to wear the badge. So now you tried to kill you. This was orders. If it weren't for your side,
No, sir. I would gladly.
Working on the audio, guys.
No retreat.
Sir Don John from House Hollow.
Sir, I hope Sir Don to celebrate my name.
It would be bad luck to kill a man on the main deck.
To be my new fool.
Thank you, Your Grace.
Do you know what it takes? Do you not complain? I've told them we were all going to die if we don't get south.
let us go.
That doesn't sound good.
Father will tell you whatever you want.
To buy me a new head. You know I didn't have a choice.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
You home.
History.
6.
He's choking! Joffrey!
Come with me now.
Joffrey! He poisoned my son. Take him! Take him!
You're safe with me. Sailing home.
They say 1,000 slaves died building the Great Pyramid of Marine.
Debajo Shiva Derve, Sumbas.
I demand trial by combat.
Tyrion Lannister, you're hereby sentenced to death.
He came from the sky. My girl. My little girl.
Marcella is my only daughter.
Dawn is the safest place for her.
You are your star. I'll take you to safety.
Cousin Lancelot, Cersei must have great trust in you.
Get back into bed.
More wine, Your Grace.
The boar got me.
100 generations have defended this castle. She will not fall tonight. Let's kill some troll!
You're attacking us?
No, we don't have the men.
Stand down!
It is customary to kneel when surrendering to a king.
We do not kneel.
What are you doing?
What do you think I'm doing?
I'm sorry.
Tyrion, you're no son of mine.
I am your son.
What have you done?
What would you say if I told you of a great sinner in our very midst?
There is enough evidence to bring a formal trial for Sir Loras and Queen Marjorie. Take her.
You're his wife now. Do what he says or he'll hurt you.
He already hurts me every night.
I've come to escort you back to your chamber.
Please, stop! Stop!
You are the son of fire. You are the warrior of light.
Nothing's more hateful than failing to protect the one you love. In the name of Renly of House Baratheon, I sentence you to die.
Stone men, don't let them touch you!
Daenerys is out there in the wilderness.
Dragon headed north. If we're going to find her, that's where we'll have to go.
You would not help us on this expedition. You would help us governing a city.
Marcella in Dawn, surrounded by people who hate our family.
I'm going to Dawn and bring our daughter home.
I wish you all the
Happiness in the world.
Whoa, that's what we needed.
Marcella? Marcella?
A girl has taken a life. The wrong life.
You're not ready.
A girl stole from the many-faced god. Now a debt is owed. The faces are for no one. You are still someone, and to someone, the faces are as good as poison.
A sinner comes before you. She has committed the acts of falsehood and fornication. She comes before you naked, before the eyes of gods and men, to make her walk of atonement.
May I have the honor of presenting the newest member of the King's Guard? He has sworn that he will not speak until all his grace's enemies are dead and the evil has been driven from the realm.
We've been fighting them for thousands of years. They've slaughtered villages. They've slaughtered our brothers.
Men, women, and children will die by their thousands if we do nothing.
You bring violence here, through our gates.
If we abandon them, you know what they become.
Open the gates.
for the watch.
Made it, Jim.
Nice.
I made it through our intro there.
Well, we
thanks for recapping.
Sure
had to make sure everything was right.
Yeah.
I can hear us. I see that we're bouncing. So hopefully everything's good, but it doesn't matter. Quick disclaimer, we're not experts. Make sure they know that. We've been told that a couple times now as they correct it. But I'm fine with that. That's what we're doing it for. It's basically just a refresher course. We're just playing some videos that are on YouTube available to anyone. Thanks to HBO for allowing that. And it's mainly for the guys at the BDL to
have fun.
Watch, and get excited. Yeah.
Yeah. Poke fun at us.
Because it's 6 days away.
Yeah.
It's Sunday. Sunday night. How sweet is that?
I'm still waiting for March. So supposedly he's gonna.
What's March gonna do?
Nut us both, I guess.
Oh, that's all right.
He didn't realize how geeky we are.
Oh, well, if he wants to nut us, he can nut us. That's fine. But let's get started. We got, what are we wasting time for? We got a lot to cover tonight. You just saw 1 through 5. If you watched all that and sat through the screeching and the audio checks and all that other stuff, that's what that's basically for. If you really want to see what 1 through 5 went down,
and if you guys got comments and want to take part, shoot us a message. We're waiting.
We're waiting for all 2 of you to respond.
Say hi.
This is more for us. I'm refreshed now. All right, so here we go. The beginning of season 6. Jon Snow's laying dead. That's where we're at. Enjoy this commentary from the directors.
The assassination of Jon Snow was the climax of season 5, and this season we wanted to start right where we left off, with his body lying motionless in the snow at Castle Black.
I don't think there's a whole lot of question about who did this and why. This was a very clear power grab.
Who killed him? I did. Bowen Marsh and Othel Yarwick and the other officers in this castle.
Thorin and Jon Snow have never gotten along, and it got to the point in season 1 where they came very close to coming to blows, and Alliser was conspiring against him from that point on. And it's a little bit like the assassination of Julius Caesar, where there were quite a few men involved in the conspiracy who all probably genuinely thought they were doing the best thing for the Roman Republic.
He thrust a terrible choice upon us, and we made it.
We're never going to fix what's wrong with this city from the top of an 800-foot pyramid.
Tyrion's very much in a situation, along with Varys, where they're sitting on a volatile powder keg of a society.
Fear has brought Meereen to a standstill. Whoever you are, wherever you go, someone in this city wants to murder you.
The enemies of Daenerys see a city ripe to be overthrown, and it's going to test Tyrion's political skills, his diplomatic skills, all of his experience.
He's optimistic in a strange way for him. He's not generally an optimistic person, but I think he feels inspired for the first time, and he feels equal to the challenge that's facing him when it comes to Meereen.
The Sons of the Harpy take orders from someone.
Have you started looking for that someone?
Your Grace, I'm sorry to disturb you. A ship from Dawn has sailed into the harbor.
Marcella.
It has been a rough couple of months for Cersei Lannister. She's still embarrassed and shamed, and then she gets word that her daughter's ship, the ship from Dorne, has arrived, so it's for the first time in a long time, it's some good news. She can finally see her beloved Marcella again.
But I think when she sees Jaime's face, and she sees what's behind Jaime under the shroud in that boat, that's the lowest point she's ever reached.
One of the things that we always loved about Cersei, and particularly about Lena Headey's interpretation of Cersei, is that she's not an evil witch whose function in life is to perform evil. She's a human being, and one thing everyone has to admit about Cersei is that Cersei loves her children.
What's happened to her is almost all she can take. The fact that she's got another child left, that and Jaime are the only things keeping her from complete despair.
We're the only ones who matter, the only ones in this world. And everything they've taken from us, we're going to take back and more.
There have been a few hints before that Melisandre is much older than she appears. Going back to a very early conversation with George Martin about her, she's supposed to be several centuries old. So we always wanted to show her true age, and we're waiting for the right moment. And this was it for us.
Her confronting the reality of her situation, her appearance is a lie. Just as the Lord of Light's supposed promises to her and messages to her were lies. At the end of episode 1, she's in a place where she really needs to look her real self in the eye and come to terms with where she stands now.
And we see the real Melisandre, which is quite feeble and aged, and yet you can see her in there.
You don't mind that I borrowed it, right? She took it off.
Yeah.
So, oh well.
If you take that off now, are you going to be like a 150-year-old man?
I'll be super old. It's from my wife's costume. I made this myself.
Nice.
Pretty impressive. It's going to fall off on me, though. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't share this. We'll have to share this on the website next. So anyways, we're well ahead of the game. That's the way it started. Jon Snow laying dead in the snow. They brought him inside, put him on the table, asked Melisandre to help him.
Yeah, Davos.
We'll see if it works.
Yeah.
She doesn't have very much confidence in it.
They barricade him in because Thorne still wants to have the body.
Kids.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, we really don't have to say much what the director's saying. Is there anything you want to say about this episode? We lost 5 people in that episode. We lost a Bolton officer, Ayo Hota.
I think this is
stabbed by one of the Sands, Prince Doran and Martell. Oh man, yeah, the big prince.
Yeah,
was in a wheelchair. He got murdered by what's his name, Oberon's wife, Elena, because she was mad that he was a wuss. And
Ilaria.
Oh,
sorry,
I didn't turn old, so that's good.
I said it wrong. Ilaria.
Yeah, well, we like saying stuff.
But you really see Cersei at the very end of this episode turn. Like she always
as soon
kind
as
of
she sees her daughter dead.
Yeah, it's you see that.
That's her last key. Oh, is it?
Even with Jaime,
even
with Jaime, she's very short with him.
Yes,
like almost, just yeah.
Anything else?
No,
I didn't think so either.
Let's go to the next one.
I know there was some other stuff going on, but we're gonna stop right there. Episode 2 called Home.
Last we saw Bran was the end of season 4, and we knew that he was heading into a very new phase of his life, one in which he was being trained for something. We didn't quite know what he was being trained for, but when we first see him in the second episode of this season, we jump right in, and now we're really seeing him not only able to walk through the world, but him being able to walk through his own past and the past of his family.
When we started working on the show, we did not want to do flashbacks because oftentimes it seems like a hallmark of kind of lazy storytelling. But that said, the history of this world is so important to understanding the world and to understanding why the characters are motivated as they are and to where they're headed. So one of the things that we really loved about this storyline with Bran is the ability to go into the past, not as a flashback, but we're seeing it from the perspective of a character that we know, and we're seeing how that character reacts to it. So it's not just us seeing Winterfell back when Ned Stark was a young boy, but also watching Bran see his father, younger than he is now, sparring with his own brother. And it's just, for us, became all of a sudden much more interesting and compelling.
It is time to go.
Please, a little longer.
It's an amazing, enticing prospect for Bran, but it's also dangerous, as the Three-Eyed Raven points out. It really needs to be doled out in doses because the temptation for Bran is to never come back.
You finally show me something I care about, and then you drag me away.
It is beautiful beneath the sea. But if you stay too long, you'll drown.
If you acquire a reputation as a mad dog, you'll be treated as a mad dog. Taken out back and slaughtered for pig feed.
My lords, Lady Walder has given birth. A boy.
Certainly from the time that Ramsay heard that Roost's new wife was pregnant, he knew there was a threat to his ascendancy. And from that moment on, Ramsay knows that his position's in jeopardy because he might be a naturalized Bolton, but whatever child Roose has with Walda is going to be a natural born, from the get-go, a legitimate Bolton. So that starts to make Ramsay nervous. And beyond all that, one thing he certainly learned from his father is that if you have a chance to seize power, you seize it, and there's no time like the present.
You'll always be my firstborn.
Thank you for saying that. It means a great deal to me.
It was certainly not something that was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. In fact, we see that when we see young Lord Karstark watching it, he's not surprised by what's happened, so he's clearly in on it. Ramsay learned certain things from his father. He certainly learned ruthlessness. The one thing about Roose, though, is that Roose planned everything very carefully, and he understood the importance of alliances. Ramsay's being a bit more incautious because the Bolton hold on the north is precarious, and much of it is due to Roose's efforts. So by assassinating Roose, Ramsay is inheriting a quite difficult job and being Warden of the North in a region where many of the families despise your family and consider them traitors.
I'm not asking the Lord of Light for help. I'm asking the woman who showed me that miracles exist.
I never had this gift.
Have you ever tried?
Davos has no real love lost for Melisandre. He is not a huge fan of hers. When they were both serving Stannis, they were always the angel and the devil on Stannis' opposite shoulders. He's seen what she's capable of. He's seen her do many impossible things. He's not a big fan of her god. He's not a big fan of her program, but there's certainly nothing to lose at this point. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work.
For Melisandre, she comes into it with grave doubts. I mean, she was someone who was a true believer, whose faith was shaken, someone who was an absolute devotee of the Lord of Light, and the events of the last many episodes have shaken that faith, but she still believes in him. She just doesn't know if he believes in her. And so she comes to Jon Snow's body with the tiniest hope that maybe if she says the right words, if she says them with enough belief, with enough passion, the Lord will listen to her.
En sindroro onios, en kir persis, en morchot gleisum.
Well, first, Melisandre believes she's failed, and that's what Tormund believes. I think he's the first to walk out. That's what Ed believes. And Davos finally gives up. It's kind of like you're applying the paddles to the patient who suffered cardiac arrest, and the paddles don't work. It was the last-ditch thing, but we can't get a pulse back, and he's gone. And then, Ghost, he's known Jon longer than any of these people have. And, all these wolves have a strange and deep connection with their Stark counterparts. So Ghost has a kind of sixth sense when it comes to Jon Snow and when Jon's in danger and when he might be coming back.
Still working on the transition part, but we're getting there. So there you go. Episode 2, Home. The one that's the thing that stuck out the most to me in that episode is Ramsay takes control of Winterfell, basically whacks his dad.
Yes. very surprising.
What
or
didn't
not
they
so
show
surprising.
us? What didn't they show us, Jim?
Oh, that was the
Well, he had
dogs being fed.
Yeah, well, the reason he was pissed was because Ramsay's baby was just born, or Roost's baby was just born, which is Ramsay's little brother, like he said. Now he's not legitimate, so he kills Roos, then brings Lady, what's her name, Lady Walda, and the baby Bolton's son, which didn't even have a name yet, I think, and they brought it into the dog kennel, and he basically fed them to the dogs alive.
Yeah.
It was pretty brutal. If you had any love for Ramsay Snow, it disappeared at that moment, and that's how I felt about that. Anyways, we also lost. They didn't cover on the Iron Islands. We lost Balon Greyjoy. Who killed him?
His brother.
Yes, Euron Greyjoy. How'd he kill him? I'm trying to get you to talk to him.
Well, he was leaving on the bridge. To go to his quarters, and his brother pushed him over when it was all stormy, and he was never found.
So we lost 4 that episode, brings our total up to 168. The total is rising. I feel like this is going kind of smooth today, so I'm not going to try and jinx it like I just did. So let's move on to episode.
We also see Jon Snow come alive.
At the very end. Yes, the very end.
They tried their hardest, and
Melisandre succeeded.
And Davos was not a fan because he didn't like her beliefs.
Yeah, he doesn't like. Well, she basically got Stannis killed, and he knows it.
I remember he tells her, he's like,
I don't believe in you.
I don't believe in you, but I've seen
what you do.
Yes, and he's like, try something.
I've seen
basically.
things I can't explain. So he basically talked her into. I love Davos too, man. The Onion Knights, my man. All right, so let's move on to 603, the Oathbreaker.
Sir Arthur Dane.
The Sword of the Morning.
Father said he was the best swordsman he ever saw.
One of the best things about being able to go back with Bran and look at the past is to be able to see the discrepancy between the received history, the things that everybody knows about the things that happened, and what actually happened.
Every kid who grows up in Westeros, they all hear about this legendary sword fight that took place 20 years ago, and as far as Bran knew, it's just his father beat this legendary guy.
And now it begins. No. Now it ends.
Honor is a kind of wished-for state amongst certain members of the society who want to be the best possible versions of themselves, and they want to live and die bravely and fighting, with this according to a certain code. And certainly Ned embodied that better than anyone we've seen, I think, on the show.
He's better than my father.
Far better.
My father beat him.
Did he?
But one thing to remember about this fight is this is at the end of a long rebellion in which Ned and Howland have seen many thousands of people die due to the insanity of the Mad King, who these Kingsguard are sworn to follow.
So honor was so important to Ned Stark that it was worth losing his own life for, but he was completely ready to let go of that honor and excellence to do something that he really felt was more important. It could make a very, very strong defense for Ned doing what he did, but it certainly does puncture the mythology of Ned Stark that's running through this world, especially after his death. I think when Dany returns to Vaes Dothrak, it's obviously with a certain sense of dread, because she knows that these widows of the former Khals are not likely to welcome her with open arms. It's not like, oh, long-lost sister, where have you been? It's, here's a funny-looking, white-haired girl who has put herself on record as thinking she's all that and stringing a bunch of highfalutin titles after her name.
Manhan Daenerys Vazion. Ahagea Samvak.
But the High Priestess of the Dosh Khaleen is not coming at it from the perspective of somebody who's looking to punish this young person with inflated ideas of her own greatness. I think she remembers what it was like to think that a glorious destiny awaited her and to find out that that wasn't the case. I think the High Priestess has a certain amount of empathy with Dany's position that you see in the way she relates to her, which is stern, but not quite as awful as anybody might have expected it to be. John coming back to life was something that with the first version we wrote originally had more talking. And as we saw it on the page written out, we realized it was just too much dialogue. We decided to just give the kind of awe of that moment its due.
We're talking about the idea that you do lose something and that you're forever changed. Not in the supernatural way. I mean, he's still John, but he's been dead. That is a haunting experience, because if that really is what's beyond, and what's beyond is nothing, just the terror of knowing that.
What do you remember?
They stopped me. I shouldn't be here.
To remember your own death and yet be sitting here and seeing evidence of what happened to you on your own body, that is existentially terrifying.
It's learning how to live with the memory of being murdered, which is the experience of absolutely no one in this world.
I did what I thought was right, and I got murdered for it. And now I'm back. Why?
All right, there you have it. Oathbreaker down.
Yes, very busy episode.
Yeah, we lost a lot of people there. That brought our total up to 177. 9 people we lost.
A lot of flashbacks, too.
The Tower of Joy scene was one of my favorites of the show. I loved it. I had heard so much about it, you know. Not reading the books, but everybody's like, oh, the Tower of Joy. And that was pretty awesome. Well,
I think what was great about that, too, is you really see that Ned is willing to do anything to keep his honor. And I think the way it went down, he would have easily lost his life.
Yeah.
And would have been okay with it. You know, he lost fair and square.
I think another thing that's cool is we're starting to see that how Bran is going to help in the future of the show, because he can see things in the past and help clear up issues that no one really has full knowledge of. So, or people that weren't there, like that, for instance. He grew up thinking that his father beat him, but technically he didn't, like you said. So that was pretty sweet. What they also didn't show at the end of the episode, Jon Snow hung everybody that betrayed him.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so basically, Sir Alistair Thorne, the first builder, first steward, and Ollie. He hung the little dude, man. Just a little kid.
Awesome.
Left him hanging. That was a pretty gruesome picture, too.
And now that as much as Ollie was, kind of a douche for what he did, he was kind of badass, because he didn't beg for his life or anything. He was just still had that anger.
He was still pissed that Jon was defending the people that killed his parents. I'm going to eat your mama, and I'm going to eat your papa. Remember that? The Thens? That was bad. Anyway.
I think the only thing badass more than what he did was just feed Ollie to the fence. Like,
like he could
now
have
you
done
can be
that.
with your parents.
Yeah, no, that would be...
That would have been
that would have been really bad.
Like, just what you get for stabbing me in the back.
Dark, Jim.
I'm just saying, it's a pretty dark show, and they did all murder him, so that'd be great if they pan to the next scene. Not even just make the implication the Fens are eating that'd be kind of cool. John just got a big smile on his face,
an Ollie wing. So at the very end too, also the line that John said is I think Ed said, "Who's in charge?" or something, and he gave him the cloak and said, "My watch has ended," and he walked out. So that's pretty much he's right. He died. He defended his oath till he died. So John's free of his oath, which is why it's called Oathbreaker, I believe. And that's that. So with that said, anything else about that episode you want to talk about?
Well, I also pretty sure it's Oathbreaker because Ned didn't legitimately kill.
I think there might be a couple of reasons. Yeah, that might be another one.
Sir Arthur Dayne.
Well, was that really an oath? To if I can't
it's
win,
an honor.
It was an honor thing.
It's definitely an honor.
I definitely think the Oathbreaker. Well, is he really an Oathbreaker? Whatever. Sure, there's another reason that somebody can explain.
Somebody yell at us and be like, no, it's because of this.
All right, so let's go on to episode 604, the Book of the Stranger.
It's a fascinating thing because we've been watching these characters now for 6 seasons, and this is the first scene they've had together. 2 of the most important characters on the show, and they've never been together on camera before. It just worked out beautifully.
The idea that after all Jon and Sansa had been through as characters, that they're finally able to put a foot back on solid ground in terms of family and somebody with whom they have a bond that runs deeper than any other bond. It was a big moment for the 2 of them, and for us to see it played out.
And to learn where these 2 are going to go with a relationship that never really meant that much to either one of them before, but now means so much because at this point they're all that they have.
They both suffered so much, and they've both been through so much, and it's interesting to see the different directions that their individual sufferings have taken them.
Can't stay here, not after what happened.
There's only one place we can go. Home.
Or should we tell the Boltons to pack up and leave?
We'll take it back from them.
Jon's just not ready to get back into the fight. Since he left Winterfell, it's been essentially one long fight against everyone possible. He fought as hard as he possibly could, and then he was killed. And so he just wants out.
It's really only the additional pull of family and finding out that Rickon Stark is still alive that forces his hand and pulls him back into this fray he was trying to step away from.
A monster has taken our home and our brother. We have to go back to Winterfell and save them both.
He has to do the right thing. That's what makes him Jon Snow, and that's why we love him, and that's why he gets himself killed.
We enter these negotiations with open eyes. Trust me, my own recent experience with slavery has taught me the horrors of that institution.
How many days were you a slave?
Long enough to know.
Not long enough to understand.
One of the historical examples that we looked to in writing these scenes was, oddly enough, was Abe Lincoln, because Abe Lincoln was trying desperately to stave off a civil war between the North and the South, and he wasn't ready to get rid of slavery quite as quickly as people think. I mean, he was trying to talk to the Southerners and work out some kind of compromise at first. And, you know, with Tyrion, it's, as he says to Grey Worm Missandei, slavery is an evil, war is an evil, and I can't end both at once. So what's the solution here? The whole point of diplomacy is compromise.
Here is the Queen's proposal. Instead of abolishing slavery overnight, we will give you 7 years to end the practice. In exchange, you will cut off your support for the Sons of the Harpy.
His proposed compromise, which he thinks of as a good idea, is incredibly offensive to Missandei and Grey Worm, who were slaves. And, you know, from their point of view, you don't make a compromise with slavers because that's making a deal with the devil. So they're entering into these negotiations with the slavers with deep skepticism, but Daenerys did choose this man to advise her, so if he's saying there's a chance, they're willing to try it, but with grave suspicions.
You will not use them. They will use you. That is what they do.
Vos mana vos khal. Ana voka ki yeri. Vos ma an have a drink. Machin an have a knock.
One of the things that was interesting for us is, you know, seeing how Dany can be strong when she's not in a position of power. You know, all the calls of all the gathered Khalasars were within the Temple of Dashkaleen, and Dany, an unarmed little woman, killed them all by herself. You know, she didn't have a dragon fly in and do it. It was all Dany.
The end of episode 604 was definitely meant consciously to echo the end of episode 110. It's Dany stepping out of a flame to great effect. This time it was just on a much, much larger scale.
Rebirth is clearly a theme this season, you know, whether it's Jon Snow or Dany emerging again from the fires. When she did it the first time, only, you know, a few score people witnessed this miracle of Daenerys Targaryen emerging unscathed from the flames. Now it's the Dothraki as a people who witnessed this.
The act of stepping out of that burning temple in which all the Dothraki power structure had just perished, pretty much makes her the queen of the Dothraki in one fell swoop.
And of course, it's hard not to be impressed when you see her emerging from the fires unscathed. It's like a god being reborn, and that's why they all bow to her.
There you go. That was a pretty badass episode by Khaleesi. She don't mess around, man. We lost lots of cows.
We did lose a lot of cows. And what I like is Khaleesi took a couple seasons where she refused to get naked.
Yeah, but
she wanted to be taken serious, and this was the first episode that it returned to
naked counter.
Nakedness.
We were supposed to add a naked counter, weren't we?
We should have.
We did not. Well, I also real quick. I jumped the gun in the last episode. John is still Lord Commander at the Night's Watch. So
Mike is a little premature about this season.
We'll talk about that later. Scott's Navy celebration. Sansa sees she's back with John, right?
Yep.
And all she wants is Winterfell back because she knows who's there and she knows.
So John still has a Night's Watch at this point, just to. In case people were confused.
Yes, John's at the Night's Watch. Sansa and Brienne and everybody came in there, so they're all back together. Sansa's impatient. John wants to wait for men. Or no, vice versa. Sansa's impatient. Yeah, that's right.
Sansa's
John needs to get his army ready.
Yep.
And she's like, hell no, let's go get our home. That's probably like my worst.
We don't have nearly
that was my least favorite word of the entire show. Home. Yeah. Home. They're in our home.
Sansa kind of... Since the beginning,
she's growing.
I don't know. Since the beginning, she always annoyed me. She was a whiny little teenage girl that Arya would tease, and she'd cry then. And then she kind of like... I felt bad for her for a little bit, but now I kind of don't again. I feel like she's...
Okay, sorry. I don't know why you talking about Sansa made me think of this, but speaking of naked ladies, Osha. If anyone watched the show, Osha is the one that saved... Bran and Rickon back in the day. She helped them escape and she got them guided through. Well, somehow Ramsay captured them. I don't remember exactly, so I'm just going to brief over that. But he captured them and got to see her naked in this episode.
We did, because she was trying to distract Ramsay. Yeah,
it was pretty impressive.
I was kind of because I was like, when you look at her, like she's a wildling and she's covering like a potato sack. And,
it was good.
And I was like, whoa!
So she got on his lap and straddled him. Thought he was gonna get a little distracted, and she went to grab a knife, but as she did that, knife in the neck. Rest in peace, Osha. It was a good attempt at an assassination. She gone. That's that. Let's move on to the next one. What do you think? We're moving right along here.
Love it.
I'm just going to start this one off and say the door.
You have no idea how happy I am to see you unharmed.
Unharmed? What are you doing here?
Sansa's gotten pretty good at playing the game. When she sees Littlefinger, though, it's not as satisfying it would be to see Brienne just cut him in two right here. But she doesn't, and that she doesn't is an interesting quality of Sansa's, that she started to look a couple moves ahead, and she started to think, is it possible this person will be more useful to me alive than dead?
I didn't know the Tullys still had an army.
My uncle, the Blackfish, has reformed it and retaken River Run.
How'd you know that?
It's funny because even as she's trying to make a clean break with Littlefinger, Sansa is showing us the ways in which Littlefinger has shaped her way of looking at the world.
Ramsay received a raven before I escaped Winterfell.
I mean, the decision not to tell Jon about the meeting with Littlefinger, not to tell Jon how she knows about the Blackfish. If she really trusted Jon and she really was coming at this as a clean, pure Stark, she would tell the truth to her brother and the person to whom she has real allegiance at this point. But for whatever reason, she holds back on that, and I think that shows that Littlefinger still has some kind of a hold on Sansa.
I am Theon Greyjoy, last living son of Balon Greyjoy, and she is your rightful ruler.
It's probably unique in the history of the Iron Islands for a male heir to reject his own claim in favor of his sister. It's one thing to say, when it's just the two of them, I don't want to be king, you should be. It's quite another thing when they have the king's moot and they're actually choosing a king. And that's, I think, when she first really begins to trust him again.
I'm Euron Greyjoy. I claim the Salt Throne.
Of course, the person who precipitated the king's moot by throwing his own brother off a bridge did so with full understanding of what a king's moot was. It's an election, and Euron Greyjoy was confident that he could step into that situation and triumph through force of personality and through violence if necessary.
There are certain symbols and patterns that recur throughout the show. The first time we saw that was in one of the very first scenes in the pilot, when Will, the ranger, sees the wildling body parts in an odd pattern displayed by the White Walkers. We see it again north of the wall with the dead horses displayed in a spiral pattern. And then you see it again here and learn where these patterns come from, that there are ancient symbols of the Children of the Forest used in their rituals, and the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers.
The Night King, who's sort of the embodiment of absolute evil. What you're watching is the creation of this absolute evil. So the absolute evil isn't absolute after all.
No one's innocent, really, in this world. And there's just something really beautifully right about the idea that the great nemesis of mankind were created to protect the children of the forest from mankind. The cave is a safe place. You know, it's like you're playing tag, and if your hand's on the wall, you're safe from whoever's it. And it is the Night King, and he can't access them as long as they're in there because of the magic that's protecting this cave. But Bran makes a mistake.
He saw me!
He's not the Three-Eyed Raven yet. He doesn't have control over these visions in the way that the Three-Eyed Raven does. But for the first time, someone actually sees him in the vision as the Night King. Which is part of the tragic mistake here, is that if the Three-Eyed Raven had been with him, things would have ended much differently.
The time has come.
The time for what?
For you to become me.
But am I ready?
No.
As soon as the Three-Eyed Raven realizes there is no more time, he's got to try to upload all this knowledge into Bran.
This is happening much, much more rapidly than he thought it was going to happen. And he doesn't really know what it all means. He doesn't know what to make of it all because it's happening under duress.
Hold the door! Hold the door!
We had this meeting with George Martin where we're trying to get as much information as possible out of him, and probably the most shocking revelation he had for us was when he told us the origin of Hodor, how that name came about. I just remember Dan and I looking at each other when he said that, and just being like, holy shit.
Hold the door! Hold the door! Hold the door! Hold the door!
It was just one of the saddest and most affecting things. Even sitting in a hotel room and having somebody tell you that this was going to happen in the abstract in some way, and that Hold the Door was the origin of the name Hodor. We just thought that was a really, really heartbreaking idea.
Hodor! 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 Hodor!
Gets me every time, Jim.
Me too.
Rest in peace, Hodor. You've made the scroll.
My half-brother.
It is sad. Makes me tear up. Sad. So, for those that don't know, that young kid was young Hodor.
Yes.
Who Bran was visiting in one of his tribals. And
made him have a seizure, basically.
Basically made him have a seizure, so the only thing he could say was Hodor. So what hit me is his whole entire life,
he was just
he pretty much knew that he was going to die holding some sort of door for Bran. Or I mean, maybe he didn't know that.
Right.
But he says Hodor because of Bran. which that was quite the revelation. That was pretty awesome. That was a spectacular death. Congratulations to you, Hodor.
Yes.
We also lost Summer, a dire wolf in the cave. Is it a he or she? It gone. We lost Leaf, one of the children of the forest,
Yes.
who was the one that was creating the Night King. So you saw how the Night King was created in a vision, which is one of the awesome things about Bran. He's a history book now.
It also explained that what I liked is that the symbols were actually the symbols of the Children of the Forest.
Children of the Forest, yes. So those have been around forever. Why the Night Kings are mimicking them? Probably because they have some sort of influence by the Children of the Forest, but we don't really know that yet. So I can't even lie to you and act like I don't know and really know, but that's it. So I wanted to cover real quick Sansa and why she withheld information from Jon. And I had no idea why. I'm like, why isn't she just telling him that she has like the Knights of the Vale, or at least Littlefinger? She might not have known she had him yet, but I just didn't understand that. And it comes to fruition when you hear then. She didn't really trust him,
right?
And she's clever like that. So if he doesn't know he has them, well, yeah, just we'll see.
I
how
think
that works
everything
out.
that happened with Baelish and her,
She didn't trust
Ramsay,
Baelish to really provide them, and I don't think she trusted Jon with the information that they were at his disposal.
That's what I'm saying. She's been stabbed in the back by everybody, pretty much. Theon.
She's on high ground.
I mean, I was Joffrey even. She thought she was going to be queen, and so everybody that she's come in contact. Really, the only one that didn't stab her in the back was Tyrion. Tyrion was actually nice to her.
Yeah.
And kept his promise, kept her safe.
Yep. It'll be interesting when they see each other again.
Well,
if they do.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know.
If they live. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I had something else about it, but it's gone. So let's just move on. Blood of My Blood, episode 6.
Sean Marks, thank God at least Jim wearing a nice shirt at a podcast, not a shirt that has a washer ears.
Episode 6 picks up almost immediately on the heels of episode 5. Bran is being dragged on a sledge and chased by whites. He opens his eyes and he's in shock.
Mira, they found us.
Hodor's heroic sacrifice bought them some time, but it hasn't set them free. I mean, they're still in grave danger.
Mira is just hoping against hope that she's going to be able to save Bran's life, and of course, she is unable to do that without a little bit of help.
Come with me, now.
Benjen was so important in the early episodes. He's an important character who just disappears. It's one of the mysteries that's been out there for several seasons, and we've been looking forward to bringing him back.
The White Walker stabbed me in the gut with a sword of ice. His children found me. Stopped the Walker's magic from taking hold.
A shard of dragon glass plunged into your heart.
Cold Hands Benjen obviously had a lot to do with the Three-Eyed Raven over the past several years since his disappearance, and he's got a bit of a window into Bran's purpose.
You are the Three-Eyed Raven, no?
I didn't have time to learn. I can't control anything.
Bran had to absorb the history of the world, the entire history of the world in imagery.
Burn them all!
They talk about the Three-Eyed Raven. It's not just a title that you get. There's a part of him that's no longer Brandon Stark, but is the Three-Eyed Raven, and the Three-Eyed Raven is not, entirely human.
You must learn to control it before the Night King comes. You will be there waiting for him. And you will be ready.
Drink long and deep, my noble king, from this cup of sweet wine.
We were excited to do the play within the play, and it's a distorted funhouse mirror representation of things we've already seen.
Poison! Murder!
Part of Arya's amusement is just that she knows they're getting so many details wrong, but she always regretted that she didn't have a chance to watch Joffrey die. And now she gets to. It's obviously a comic version of it, but that gives her great pleasure.
Arya is kind of slowly getting seduced by these performances, and Lady Crane, the actress she's charged with killing, this is somebody who, like her, has taken as her life's work the job of becoming other people. When Arya's looking in the mirror and she's trying to decide who she is and what she is, and is she actually the kind of person who can do this killing, knowing full well that if she fails in this task, as Jaqen told her, one way or another, another face will be added to the wall. Implication is it's her face or it's your face.
She's killed plenty of people before, but there were always people who were either people she hated or people who were in her way. In this case, she's assassinating someone who she actually likes.
You have very expressive eyes, Mercy. Wonderful eyebrows. Do you like pretending to be other people?
The decision to shatter the glass before it reaches Lady Crane's lips means not just that she's going to be kicked out of the House of Black and White, but there's no coming back. Her chances of survival now have just grown very slim.
Wait here.
Daenerys talks about the dragons being her children, and that the dragons are the only children she'll have. Of her 3 children, she's always been closest to Drogon, and they clearly have some kind of connection that goes beyond words, and she just senses that he's out there in this scene. One of our favorite moments from season 1 was watching Khal Drogo deliver a speech to his gathered Khalasar. That speech clearly lingered in Daenerys' mind, and she's echoing almost the exact same language when she's talking to the Dothraki now. So she's basically telling them the promise that one of the great calls had made years before, and saying now's the time to live up to that promise and to fulfill it. It's something that's been set up for quite a long time, and now we're seeing it come to pass.
All right, we're back. Make sure we're good. What do you think? I kind of exited the room for a minute, so what are your thoughts on that episode? Meh.
Yeah, it's more
a setup episode.
It's just a lot of Arya with the whole
black being an assassin.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I was never thrilled with that whole thing.
But we don't know what that was for.
Right, exactly.
So we know that she had to learn how to do all this stuff. We know that she's already went against supposedly supposed to kill somebody.
Yes.
And they told her it will not happen again. So basically, like you said, it was her or her, and she chose to let the lady live. You saw the waif there.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what I was wondering is if the waif is really a version of the what's his name?
The Faceless Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I would think so.
Like,
the way she was, I would think so.
Like I almost wonder if it's like, we find that out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we won't talk too much more about that because there's some cool stuff coming up in some of the episodes. Daenerys is taking control. They're all following her. All the Dothraki. She's gonna take them across the sea to Westeros, and they're all seem like they're pretty ready to go for that. One thing they didn't show, Jaime tries to. Marjorie is in the Sept. Is it the Sept? What is it? The Great? The Sept? She's in the dungeon with the High Sparrow.
Oh, yes.
So that was kind of glossed over a while ago, but she's a prisoner, so Jaime tries to rescue her, but Tommen is so in depth with High Sparrow now that he basically tells Jaime, that was wrong, you didn't do what I told you, you're out of the Kingsguard, go help Walder Frey reacquire the twins, right? Mm-hmm. So that's because the Blackfish, somebody from the fort, took him back from the Freys.
Yep.
So there you go.
Jaime goes with Bronn, right?
Yeah. Brendan the Blackfish. I think that's what it is. All right, so that's what happened in that episode. Let's speed along here. We're doing all right. Trying to keep this a little shorter than 2.5 hours.
Trying.
Yeah, so we're good. We're not at an hour yet. I don't think so. But here we go. Episode 607, The Broken Man.
How many men did it take to cut you down?
Just one.
Oh. He must have been some kind of monster.
He was a woman.
I think suffering a near-death experience probably changes anyone, and that certainly has changed Sandor Clegane. He's a more thoughtful person than he was when we last saw him. He's probably more aware of his vulnerabilities. He knows how close he came to dying, and he's really thinking about his past in a way that he never had before.
Never too late to stop robbing people, to stop killing people, start helping people. It's never too late to come back.
You can feel the very subtle effect that Ray and his community are having on the Hound, and he's starting to see that there's perhaps a different way of living your life.
What are you doing here? Well, we're talking about life. You?
Protecting the people.
The unfortunate, ugly reality is that the kind of pacifism that Ray is preaching is often suicidal when you're in the middle of the kind of world that they're all in. Something sad about the fact that this person who tried desperately to walk away from what he was is being given no real choice but to go full throttle back in the direction of what he really is, which is a killer.
This isn't your fight. You shouldn't have to come to Winterfell with me. I shouldn't be asking you. I need you with me if we're gonna beat them, and we need to beat them if you're gonna survive.
Jon is not a wildling. Jon grew up in a castle raised by a noble father, but Jon has a much easier time with the kind of plain talk that the people north of the Wall resonate with.
He died for us. If we are not willing to do the same for him, we deserve to be the last of the free folk.
These wildlings that he's convincing are people whose lives he's saved. They're people who've seen the same things he's seen. They are reticent to follow anyone, especially a non-wildling, but they're all smart enough and practical enough to realize that the old rules that governed their existence for hundreds of years are no longer in effect.
No.
So he does a very good job convincing them, but he has a harder time with Lady Mormont.
I served under your uncle at Castle Black. I was his steward. In fact,
I think we've had enough small talk. Why are you here?
We were excited about the prospect of the character, because she's mentioned in passing in the previous season.
Do you know this wretched girl? Lyanna Mormont.
The Lord Commander's niece.
Lady of Bear Island. And a child of 10.
The more we thought about it, Jon is going to come up against so many old guys with beards in the north that, like, what if she was a tougher audience? It seemed like an inherently fun scene to watch. It also is terrifying because it's putting a lot of dramatic weight on the shoulders of somebody who needs to be very young. And we're very lucky to have found Bella because she is doing such a great job of just talking smack to these guys who are used to being the heroes who make proclamations.
What you have to understand, my lady, is that...
I understand that I'm responsible for Bear Island and all who live here. So why should I sacrifice one more Mormont life for someone else's war?
I'll never hurt you, little brother. Don't you know that?
Yara does love Theon, and one could argue that she's the only one who's ever really loved him. Yara's always been there for him. She's the only person who tried to rescue him when he was Ramsay's prisoner.
I know you've had some bad years.
Some bad years?
But I'm tired of watching you cower like a beat dog. Drink the goddamn ale!
It's a very tough love, though. Yara's not a therapist in our kind of sense of the word. She's not there to, tell him to buck up and everything's going to be okay.
If you're so broken that there's no coming back, take a knife and cut your wrists. End it.
It's a pretty brutal kind of therapy, but that's who they are. I mean, they're essentially a Viking people. There's not a lot of room for sort of soft and gentle psychology. I think it's the kind of tough love that Theon needed at this point. And when he finally raises his eyes and looks into her eyes, we see a glimpse of the old Theon that had been lost for so long.
All right, Theon's back. Kind of. We think he's back. I don't understand the whole Theon Yara thing. It was annoying me.
I also wonder, since Yara is into women, if now she's attracted to her brother.
Yeah, okay. He could be.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. The little bear, we met her. She's crazy. Lyanna Mormont. That little girl, she's a
Funny as
badass.
hell.
I like her.
Yeah.
Not much to say. That's a big setup episode. So let's not waste too much time.
Nope.
Let's go on to
Speed
the
it
next
up.
one. No one.
Yeah, we're still on.
The Crown has decided that from this day forward, trial by combat will be forbidden throughout the Seven Kingdoms.
This moment is a grievous blow for Cersei because she's been counting on trial by combat really since the end of season 5. This was always her ace in the hole. The Mountain was never going to lose a trial by combat. There's no one out there who could beat him. And then Tommen takes it away from her. And knowing really what he's doing, he might be a weak king, but he's not an idiot. You know, he understands that this move is to mean that she's probably not going to fare that well in this trial. So it's a pretty devastating moment for Cersei, and you see that in her reaction, and partly because it's just bodes so ill for this coming trial, and partly because it's her own son who's really betrayed her.
7 blessings to all.
You know, he's in a tough position where he has to do what he thinks is right, and unfortunately for Cersei, what he thinks is right in this moment is doing something which is very much against Cersei's interests.
My name is Brienne of Tarth. Please inform Sir Jaime Lannister I've come to speak with him.
Jaime didn't expect to see Brienne necessarily ever again. He certainly didn't expect to see her marching into his military camp. And his relationship with her is obviously very complicated and fraught and has undercurrents that he's uncomfortable with feeling.
You gave it to me for a purpose. I have achieved that purpose.
Giving her the Valyrian steel sword was no small thing. There are probably like 10 of these things in the world.
It's yours. It will always be yours.
He's given it to her, not to carry out one task or for one stretch of time, but for the rest of her life. I think that's a symbolic, meaningful gesture on his part. And yet, here she's honor-bound to point out that they're not on the same side in this fight, and that if it turns to a real fight, they may end up having to actually fight one another.
It's these two who are not quite sure of how they feel about the other, and he lets her go. You know, he'd be well within his rights to send his men after her to capture her, and it wouldn't be that hard to capture her since she's being slowly rowed away by Podrick, but he doesn't. She might technically be an enemy now that she's serving Sansa Stark, who is still obviously a suspect in Joffrey's murder, but she's not Jaime's enemy. So he's letting her go, and she knows that he's letting her go, and you know, who knows if they'll ever see each other again.
Arya is in danger. She's got an open wound in her stomach, and the one person who has protected her to this point, unfortunately, gets murdered.
The many-faced god was promised a name. He must always receive what is his. And now he's been promised another name.
The fact that the many-faced god gets the people who have been promised to him really makes you think that there's just almost an inevitability about what happens to people who run afoul of the Faceless Men, as Arya has done.
It will all be over soon.
Getting to the final part of the sequence, Arya's telling Jaqen by putting the face on the wall that this account is settled and we're good here and now I'm gonna walk away, and I think she knows what the answer's gonna be.
Finally, a girl is no one.
The implication is obviously that Jaqen on some level was rooting for the outcome that he got. He may be no one, but there's still enough of a person left in him to respect and admire who this girl is and what she's become. Arya finally tells us something that we've kind of known all along, that she's not no one, she's Arya Stark of Winterfell.
All right. Arya is a badass. She's graduated.
Yeah.
Her diploma is the Waif's face, which she gave back to the House of Black and White. So that was pretty impressive. So, want to go over what we glossed over last episode?
Yes. The Hound is alive.
Yes, we learned
and has
that.
a purpose.
Brienne did not kill him.
No, he's at peace, and
helping him build a church or whatever they're building.
He was trying to be at peace, and then just people couldn't.
Then
let
some
it go.
rogue band of brothers, Steve, Riddle, Gaines, Morgan, some other dudes, think there's 3 of them.
Yep.
But they did what they were not supposed to do, and hurt the people as opposed to protect them. So
Not just hurt them, killed them.
Yeah, they killed them.
So the Hound took his revenge.
And he wasn't there because he was off doing something else. He was cutting a log or something. So, why is he still alive? So, anyways, he gets his revenge in this episode.
He got drunk. Remember, he wasn't drinking. He got drunk and passed out.
Oh,
and then
there
when he
you go.
came to, all the people were dead.
Thank you.
And then he chased him down and killed them all.
That's why we're both here, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And now that we're getting closer to, the final season,
and I'm
it's
really
a little bit fresher
sad.
in my mind.
I'm really sad that they didn't show him get his revenge because it was pretty brutal. He actually couldn't kill them all. He had to at least leave them one to hang. Something weird, but whatever. He caught up to him with a bunch of the other Brandon Brothers guys, and he killed a whole bunch of them. It was pretty sweet. Also, Lady Crane, the actress, bit the dust here. Apparently, she got her throat slit. I thought she broke her neck, but either way, she gone. Arya liked her. I could add her to the Rip Scroll if you'd like, but I don't know if anybody actually really reads that. But anyways, and the waif. We know about the waif. Also, I think we find out Jamie and Brienne are in love. A secret love. That's the way I started looking at it.
I don't know about love, but they definitely have respect.
Mutual, almost love.
Yeah.
It's almost, you know what, in different circumstances, you and I would be taking this armor off.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And if you didn't look like a man, I could take you.
All right, we lost a whole bunch of people that episode, brought our death toll up to 200, so congratulations to the waif. You have the 200th death in my book. So there we go. Let's go on to my favorite episode of the entire show. Episode 609, Battle of the Bastards.
You have a lot of favorites.
Despite appearances, I think you'll find the city's on the rise.
The city's on the rise?
The people are behind you. Well, not all the people, of course.
Daenerys, when she comes back to that situation, she has no idea what to expect. She doesn't know what's happened in Meereen. In a way, you feel for Tyrion because she left him with a terrible situation. The city was under siege from within and without, and he really did, for so long, such an excellent job of making things better there, and unfortunately what she comes back to find is exactly what she would have expected to find when she left. And the fact that she has a city at all still is due to him.
Good. Shall we begin?
Do we have a plan?
I think Dany's been becoming a Targaryen ever since the end of season 1.
She's not her father, and she's not insane, and she's not a sadist, but there's a Targaryen ruthlessness that comes with even the good Targaryens.
Your reign is over.
My reign has just begun.
If you're one of the lords of Westeros, or one of her potential opponents in the wars to come, and you get word of what happened here in Meereen, you have to be pretty nervous because this is an unprecedented threat. You've got a woman who's somehow formed an alliance where she's got a Dothraki horde, a legion of Unsullied, she's got the mercenary army of the Second Sons, and she's got 3 dragons who are now pretty close to full grown. So if she can make it all the way across the Narrow Sea and get to Westeros, who's going to stand in her way?
I've defended the wall from worse than Ramsay Bolt.
You don't know him.
All right, tell me. What should we do? How do we get Rickon back?
I think Sansa's frustrated here because she knows Ramsay better than any of them do. There's no way Ramsay's gonna let him survive because Rickon is a threat to Ramsay's legitimacy as Warden of the North. He's a true-born Stark. There's no possible outcome where this ends well for Rickon.
From the beginning, we knew that one thing we'd never had on the show was a true medieval pitched battle, where 2 sides bring all the forces they can into play and some battlefield that's somehow negotiated or agreed upon, and they go at each other until one of them wins and the other one loses. This is a staple of human history, and we started to look through film examples of it. There really wasn't one that both made you feel what it was like to be there on the ground and gave you a sense of the geography of the battle.
Just to feel the kind of randomness of it, where there's arrows falling from everywhere, people are getting killed, people are getting trampled by horses, and so much of it is just luck. Jon Snow is a very skilled combatant, but part of the reason he survives this battle is just he gets lucky.
We went back to the Roman fight against the Carthaginians in the Battle of Cannae, where the Romans got caught in an encirclement by Hannibal and just slaughtered to the man. And we used that as sort of our model.
The Battle of the Bastards becomes incredibly compact, and all these men, all these combatants crammed into this incredibly tight space on the battlefield. You read accounts of battles in the Civil War where the bodies were piled so thick it actually became an obstruction on the battlefield. Even for someone we love as much as Jon, just something so dehumanizing about it. And even his look, he's so covered in blood and soot. There's like a wildness to him, especially after what he's seen. There's just no part of Jon that's not going to pursue.
Open the gate!
The initial version of the battle all took place on the battlefield, but it was the battle for Winterfell. As we talked it through, it started to occur to us that the episode is really about bringing things home for Jon, have him fight for his home in his home.
He's a deeply good human being, but he pushed anyone beyond their limits and they snap.
There's nothing he wants more than to beat Ramsay to death with his own fists. And then he sees his sister, who suffered at the hands of this man, and he realizes that this person is not his to finish.
Sansa. Hello, Sansa.
The show doesn't always give people the things that are gonna make them happy, but this felt like a moment where it made narrative sense that they would win this fight and that Ramsay would come into their possession as a prisoner.
Is this where I'll be staying now?
I don't think Ramsay realizes it's over until he wakes up in the chair. I think he's crafty enough and he's always managed to get away with everything. I think he's still hopeful that there might be some way he can connive his way out of this one too, until the very, very end.
My hounds will never harm me.
You haven't fed them in 7 days, you said it yourself.
His dogs were such a thing for him in this season and in seasons past, and such an extension of his own horrible urges, and the idea that they would be turned against him and that it would happen at Sansa's hands made a lot of sense to us.
Stop! Stop! Stop!
This isn't the little girl who wanted to dress up like a princess anymore. Her walk away at the end of the scene, and that's one of my favorite shots we've ever had. It's just the little ghost of a smile on her face. She's in Winterfell, but she's not the person she was when she first left.
Battle of the Bastards. Great episode. What an action scene. Long battle. 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Yeah,
Super long. Most of the episode. Rest in peace, Rickon. I don't know why he didn't zigzag.
Yeah.
Why does he run straight?
Who doesn't know how to
I zigzag. Serpentine.
Yeah.
You got zigzag. Rest in peace, Ramsay Bolton. Not rest in peace. You deserve that shit. I'm glad your dogs ate you. Why didn't you shoot Jon Snow in the leg? I mean, he's coming right at you. Shoot him somewhere else. I know the other guys are going to shoot you, but at least you don't get your ass whooped. But anyways, Wan. Rest in peace, Wan, the last giant. Oh, gruesome scene when he busted through the doors of Winterfell and he grabs the thing. They threw a spear in his hand and he whips his hand through the spear. Oh, that was pretty gross. But then he died like 10 minutes later, so it's not too bad.
He was pretty messed up.
He looks like a pincushion, man.
Yeah, he was.
He had arrows all over him. It's too bad. Rest in peace, giants. So as far as we know, there's no more giants available.
And you see Baelish with his army come and save the day, actually.
Yes. So that's why I feel like Sansa might not have told Jon about Baelish, because she knew that he was underestimating Ramsay, because he was beat. He was
John wouldn't have accepted his help, I don't think. I think John's so proud he would think that Baelish had ulterior motive,
which he probably does. But yeah, so I think that Sansa did it perfectly here. Yep. Sansa saved the day. Baelish saved the day. So actually, Cousin Rodman saved the day. He might be hoping he can suck on Sansa's titties because he's the one that likes.
He misses his mommy.
Misses his mom's boobs.
Yeah.
So there's that. That's about it, right? We're up to 207 deaths. We added Shaggy Dog because his head got tossed out in this episode. And man, I thought we were going to lose a lot of guys. I thought we were going to lose Davos, Tormund, and Snow in this one. And you brought this up while we were watching it. It seems like every episode is my favorite episode just because as we keep going, I realize, oh yeah, I like that one even better.
Right. So that's what's great about doing these reviews.
It's just another good episode.
Absolutely.
So let's go on to the last one of the season. We're going to stop after this one. It's just too long, and we want to focus on 7 and 8 a little longer. Yep. So we'll have another episode tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll all 4 of you can watch with us.
Yeah, we'll let Sean Marks know.
We'll try and do it earlier. So no, we won't. Who cares? All right, you ready? So
we got lives.
Let's go to one of my favorite soundtracks of the show, the music Light of the Seven that came in this. The title is actually The Winds of Winter, but I love the soundtrack to this song. So anyways, here we go.
I'm ready. I have to go. I'm late for the trial.
At this point in the story, you're trying to kind of play with the pieces that we've got on the board. The wildfire was something that we had on the board. We knew from Jaime's conversation with Brienne that there was wildfire under the city. We know from episode 2 that there was wildfire under the city. Everything that Olenna says about Cersei earlier in the season is true, that she's got no more friends left. She has no more power left. Olenna asks her point blank, "What, are you gonna kill everyone yourself?" It's possible that she puts an idea in Cersei's head, or at least augments an idea that's already been in Cersei's head.
By the time that Lancel Lannister gets down there and sees that there is this massive catacomb and something suspicious is going on, I think you've got to start wondering, what the hell is this plot?
You see Marjorie's realizing slowly, horribly, like what is actually happening here.
Cersei understands the consequences of her absence, and she is absent anyway, which means she does not intend to suffer those consequences.
It's all been building up to this moment, and then, boom. She's really achieved a stunning, very surprising victory against everybody who's opposing her all at once. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Tommen's alone. This fragile, malleable, devastated child, basically, is sitting there without anybody to comfort him, and if she had been there, he wouldn't have gone out that window. She failed him, and she alone failed him here.
I think the idea of Cersei without her children is a pretty terrifying prospect because it was the one thing that really humanized her, you know, her love for her kids. And as much of a monster as she could sometimes be, she was a mother who truly did love her children. And now those children are gone, and all she's got is power, and she's got a lot of it. I mean, she's the queen. She's sitting on the Iron Throne. I don't think that bodes well for anyone, really. And I think, you know, even for Jaime, who loves her, I think it's a terrifying moment. She's capable of doing anything, as she's proven in this episode, to get what she wants. And the real question now is, what does she want? Sansa, she does love her brother, you know, and they've had a conflicted past.
I'm not a Stark.
You are to me.
Over the course of this season, they've come to really rely upon each other, but she doesn't necessarily trust him completely. You know, she didn't tell him about the meeting with Littlefinger. She didn't tell him that she summoned the Knights of the Vale. There was definitely like a little hint of conflict there. We see that come out in episode 9, where she's, at the war council where no one asks her opinion, despite the fact that she knows Ramsay better than anyone. So I think there's a little bit of anger about that, and a little bit of jealousy, and that relationship will be crucial to watch.
You're the Lady of Winterfell. You deserve it. We're standing here because of you. The battle was lost until the Knights of the Vale rode in. They came because of you.
When we see the second King in the North scene with Jon, I think it was important to us that it evoked that first King in the North scene.
The King in the North! The King in the North!
It's very different circumstances, different environment. They're at Winterfell instead of military encampment.
We know no king, but the king in the north whose name is Stark. I don't care if he's a bastard. Ned Stark's blood runs through his veins. He's my king, from this day until his last day.
The King in the North!
The King in the North!
In some ways, the evocation of the first one is meant to be a little bit worrisome because, it was a very triumphant moment when Robb is named King in the North, but it didn't go so well for the previous King in the North. So I think we have to be a little worried for Jon. And at the same time, it's a pretty big reversal, and for a character who was dead at the beginning of the season to be declared king at the end of it, he's done well. He's done well in 10 short episodes. Arya is someone whose path has been very dark, and yet I think we all see where she's coming from. I mean, she's seen the Stark family endure so many atrocities, and she wants vengeance. In some ways, it's the cleanest narrative of them all. Well, this is a scene we've been looking forward to for quite some time, her return to Westeros and her revenge upon Walder Frey.
For House Frey!
My name is Arya Stark. I want you to know that. The last thing you're ever going to see is a Stark smiling down at you as you die.
It's a worrisome narrative for Arya because, she started as this little girl who was always tough and plucky and whatnot, but, she's become a murderer, and a highly skilled murderer. And even if the murders are justifiable, it's still, we've witnessed the descent of this girl into someone who's capable of slitting a man's throat and kind of smiling as she watches him bleed out. So that's, I don't think anyone's going to be crying over the fate of Walder Frey, but it's still, if you love Arya, you have to be a little bit worried about where she goes from here.
Tyrion had a very steep slope to climb to win Dany's trust. His family played an integral part in nearly exterminating her family. But at this point, especially given the hand he was dealt with Meereen after she left, has earned her trust. One of the few people in the world at this point who's willing to speak the truth to her face.
Mainly, he's proven himself to be very loyal. She's gone for most of the season, but he didn't abandon her. He didn't go off looking for the next person to rule. I mean, he was clearly trying to serve her interests while she was gone. Dany's not going to do anything she doesn't want to do. She's not going to take anyone's advice if it seems against her interests. And so when he recommends that she cut ties with Dario, she does it because she thinks he's right. The truth is, Tyrion's logic makes a lot of sense to her. He's not going to be a help for her when she gets to Westeros. She comes over there unencumbered, and as a queen without a king, that could be really useful in the future.
Who are you marrying this time?
I don't know.
Tyrion has become a very capable advisor in a relatively short time. She clearly respects his intelligence, and she now respects his loyalty. I think, especially given that she knows where they're heading. They're going back to Westeros. Most of the people on her team have never been there, but Tyrion spent his whole life there, served as Hand of the King before, defended King's Landing during an attack.
I'd swear you're my sword, but I don't actually own a sword.
It's your counsel I need.
He knows these families, the ruling families, better than anyone. He certainly knows Cersei better than anyone. So as long as she can trust him, which she does, he's the perfect advisor to her in the war for Westeros. He's the perfect hand to the queen, and that's why she names him such.
That shot of Dany's fleet with all of her newly arrayed allies making its way out of the Slaver's Bay towards the Narrow Sea and home. Probably the biggest single thing that's happened on the show thus far. It's the thing we've been waiting for since the pilot episode of the first season. The person she is now is very, very different from the person she was then. It hasn't been a smooth road. Feels like she has earned it at this point.
It's the shot that we're going to leave everyone with.
But it was a real thrill to see her on the bow of that ship with Tyrion by her side heading west. It's a ruthlessness that comes with even the good Targaryens. I mean, these are the people who came over from across the Narrow Sea and conquered the known world. It'd be very interesting to see how that plays out going forward.
There you go. That's it. Season 6. That's a wrap. Very interesting ending. Some people might be saying, where'd you get all those ships? We forgot to mention she decimated the Masters last episode and pretty much took all their ships. That was one of Tyrion's lines. Thank you for the ships.
Yes.
The Queen sure does love ships. Something like that.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
I love Tyrion.
Yeah. Speaking of Tyrion, he's now the hand of the Queen.
Yes.
He's moving up.
We also see them march to Westeros now.
Yeah. We lost a lot of people thanks to crazy. Now, as you can see, Queen Cersei, because she melted almost all the Tyrells, the major ones, Marjorie, Loras,
used the
Mace, the dad.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're pretty much gone. That was Tommen's wife. So
Tommen was now allowed out of his chambers,
and for some reason they left him alone with the window open.
Yeah, and he took his own life.
Took flight. He's gone.
And Cersei becomes queen.
Yeah.
Because there's no more children.
And sorry, Tommen, you're gone. So we'll have to fix the thing. We're down to Stannis and Daenerys, Dany, for the who's next in line, right? I mean, is there anybody else that is in line?
Gendry.
Well, yeah, Gendry. We forgot all about him. He's not around.
No.
He's still rowing. We don't know where Gendry is. So, anyways, we're going to wrap it up tonight because that was kind of long. And we want to focus on 7 and 8. So we're going to do it tomorrow, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Tomorrow as in Tuesday or Wednesday. Yep. You know, we'll get it in before Sunday. That's
Absolutely.
for sure. Because it's coming. And season 7 had some of my favorite episodes in it. Go figure. So, oh, by the way, Arya went totally apeshit on the phrase. That was pretty.
Walter Frey's children.
Walter Frey, yeah, she went apeshit on Walter Frey.
Yeah,
she killed the boys, his boys, and put them in a pie. And
pot pie, or
she must have killed the girl that she was dressed as.
It was a meat pie. That's right.
Meat pie. They were hard to cut. Oh. And then he lifted up the one, and you could see this toenail. Oh, it was bad.
Yeah. And
so, anyways,
sliced his throat.
Sliced him and smiled as the camera pans away. That was interesting. So, also they had a Tower of Joy flashback in this that they didn't really cover.
Yes, that's right.
Bran, the earlier in the season, we left it off where Ned was running into the tower, and I believe that's where they left it because Ned thought that he heard Bran, so that's kind of where they left it. Now this, you see what happens. He went into the tower, and we see Lyanna, bloody.
Yep.
Just gave birth.
And it's
and we don't know
that
we don't know who it is.
Right.
We don't know. She just whispers the name. We can't really hear it. But she says, you have to protect him. You know he'll kill him. So you're left to assume that it's Rhaegar's child.
Yep. And that Robert would kill him if he found out.
Yes. That's kind of what you're left to assume.
Yep.
There's no truth. And then there's
no
real proof.
But things are starting to fall into place
as to who it is, because after they show the baby's face, or is that later? Is that 7? We'll just leave it right there. We're not sure. Can't figure it out yet. I'm surprised they glossed over that in the comments. But.
Yeah, that's pretty important.
All right, so that's season 6. That's a wrap, right? We'll come back tomorrow and finish up. Anything else you'd like to say, Jim, before we go?
No.
I'd like to say thank you to HBO and YouTube for allowing me to share their videos.
And Sean Martz for staying with us.
Yeah, Sean Martz, thank you. We read some of your comments, Sean Martz. Thank you. But okay, that's it. Let's wrap it up. Thanks for watching.
Peace.
All 4 of you.